Pickle, one last time.
Get in, losers.
We are going to summer camp. It is the conclusion of our 12-part series, Summer Camp.
This might have been my favorite just because I can say that.
You could call our listeners losers.
Yeah. I think this is my new favorite segment.
So, we have arrived on the east side of Houston. We've arrived at the University of Houston to talk about the Cougs, #H-Town Takeover. We've gone from west to east, from UTEP all the way to Houston, and we are here to break down the 2020 Houston Cougars. And so let's start with the state of the program. And the state of the program is,
we don't know.
We don't know.
We have no earthly idea.
Coming off of truly one of the most bizarre
Wildest
seasons in Texas college football history, we don't really know what to make of.
Does Houston even know what to make of what they're working with here? To be honest,
I think they do. I think they feel like they know what they got,
but they definitely felt like that going into last season.
Right. So if you are just if you have not been paying attention to the most remarkable story in college football in Texas in 2019 rather. So Houston feels like everything's going great. Mm-hmm. They bring in Dana Holgorsen, first year at the helm, and they go and in the middle of the season,
they get 4 games in.
And then suddenly comes the announcement that their undisputed best player,
by far,
quarterback D'Eriq King, along with a couple of other key pieces, are going to redshirt. They're going to say, no, I'm going to take the redshirt. Because the rule is, the rule at least last year in normal times, was that you could play 4 games, and then but you could still redshirt. They got those 4 games in, they're like, I'm done. I don't want to play. The idea was, and we were like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, are they like punting on the season?
Like tanking.
Like they, it obviously, look, they were 1-3 at the time. It obviously was not where they wanted to be. Their one win was over Prairie View. They just lost to Tulane. They weren't where they wanted to be. So like, okay, like what's going on here? We were thinking, okay, maybe Dana Holgorsen's playing 3D chess.
Yeah.
Maybe he's thinking, you know what? This is D'Eriq King's senior year. I'm going to redshirt him, and I'm going to keep him for one more year when we have a better shot of contending for an AAC crown for bigger things. We thought maybe he was playing 3D chess. That kind of went out the window whenever D'Eriq King transferred.
Right.
And D'Eriq King...
He was like, see ya, I'm going to Miami.
And he went to Miami. So now, like, we don't really... They end up going 4-8. You know, Clayton Tune steps up and becomes, like, the quarterback.
Talk about a guy that's had a weird
He's had a weird career. He's had a weird career. But he's now the guy. He's now QB1. Look, in a vacuum, if you take a look at what Houston's got coming back, there's a lot to like. There's a whole lot to like about it. But it's like because like the question of what is the state of the program is so complicated because like we don't really know. We don't really know what the state of the program is. It might be exactly what Dana Holgorsen's looking like. Or it might be Dana Holgorsen's in the middle of just blowing this whole thing up and starting from scratch and building it in his own world. We don't know.
Right.
That's what makes Houston so fascinating to me is that like they're borderline like experimental right now.
And I feel like as we can look at the players and say, yeah, they've got all the pieces that they need, but we have literally no idea what goes on behind the scenes there. So like we could look at the football and tell you kind of what the state of the program is, but when you start talking about back office stuff, it's like, right,
because
we have no idea.
It's weird because like on one hand, you'd be like, okay, well, he wants to get his young guys in and wants to do big things, and that's fine. He wants to hold over some of those seniors to make sure that they're able to do it. Well, like their recruiting class was okay. It wasn't great. Then again, it was Dana Holgorsen's first like full class.
Right.
I don't know. It's so hard to get a read on what Houston is right now. That's why the state of the program is just like a shrug emoji. Let's go to the offensive breakdown. The offensive breakdown, to me, has to start with the receivers because they've got some of the best receivers in the state, if not the country. I think Marquez Stevenson is a ultra megastar. I love Marquez Stevenson. I think he's a star. Keith Corbin, I think, is a really, really solid second receiver, right? I think you could have a guy like Trevon Bradley step up and be the guy. They like what they have in Christian Trahan at the tight end spot. The receivers are going to be, in my opinion, the undisputed strength of this team. Their receivers are. Clayton Tune is a real Rorschach test of, like, what do you value in a quarterback? I don't think Clayton Tune is like a Baker Mayfield.
He's not like super athletic.
Take over a game all by himself. But I think he can make every play you need him to.
I think he is really intelligent.
I think he's real comparable to a guy like Charlie Brewer at Baylor, where he's not going to dazzle you.
Old faithful.
But then you're going to look at the scoreline at the end, or you're going to look at the box score at the end of the day, and you're going to be like, oh, well, he threw for 340 yards, and he threw for 4 touchdowns, and he did throw 1 pick, but that's not bad. That's what I think. I think that he's that guy. I think he probably doesn't get enough credit for how good he is. The running backs are interesting. Kyle Porter, the Texas transfer, and Mulder Carr. The depth may be a bit of an issue, but I do think that the running back stable is pretty solid. The offensive line does bring back 3 starters. They got absolutely hammered by injury last year, which I think that was part of the reason that I think you saw, like, one of the things we thought, oh, maybe they're like redshirting all these guys because they want to get the offensive line healthy. Well, they bring back 3 of their 5 starters from last year's team. I think that now they are working on a freshman tackle in Patrick Paul, which is going to be an adventure maybe, but overall, look, I think this offense has a chance to make some noise. I think this offense has a chance to be pretty good, and especially when you've got receivers like that, I think they've got a great chance.
Well, especially when you're not switching who's leading the offense every 3 weeks.
I think maybe
that helps.
I think maybe the best thing they could have is just like consistency and like a boring week to week thing. Now, of course, gestures broadly, but like what I mean. That's one of the things that could help. Let's go to the defense, and look, the defense was not great last year. They were 11th in the American Athletic Conference in scoring defense and total in passing defense. But they do bring back pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
They do bring back pretty much everyone. I like this secondary. I like the back half more than the front half, and I'll explain. I like the secondary a lot. And I think that with guys like Giovanni Stewart, with guys like Deontay Anderson, with guys like Donovan Mooten, I think that there's a lot to like here in the secondary. And generally speaking, when I think of Houston, when I think of their best teams, they are generally reflective of having great secondaries. So I would like to see that defense take a step forward, and if that secondary takes a step forward, they tend to lift all boats. Now that's during past regimes and stuff like that, but generally, like when I think of great Houston teams, I think, man, playmaking secondaries. And I think they got some pieces to do that. The linebackers, I think that they are really solid. Grant Stewart is moving from nickel to kind of will linebacker. I think he's gonna make his presence felt. I think that this is a linebacker core that has a chance to really be solid. The front gives me a little trouble. There are guys that I like. I like the Russian and Peyton Turner, but in the middle is still kind of unknown, and that's going to be a big area of concern for me. Is do they get pushed around up front? If they start getting pushed around up front, then that could spell some trouble for Houston.
I think you can look at the Houston defense too, kind of like how we talk about the difference between our computer rankings and our in-person rankings, that the computer's going to take, okay, yes, they've got 7 starters coming back, and that sounds all great, but you've got to consider the quality of the starters coming back, and so it's one of those things. Those guys are going to have to take those necessarily like leaps.
Well, and furthermore, not to bring down the room, but like one of the reasons I'm a little bit nervous about this defensive front for Houston is because of Cedric Williams. Cedric Williams was the Kilgore College transfer who figured to be a really important part of that rotation. Well, he is opting out of the season. He had COVID-19, and he apparently developed a heart condition from COVID-19, and so as a result, he's opting out. Certainly nobody can blame him for that. No. But taking that and applying it to the depth chart, that is a blow to the depth. up front.
Especially this close to what is supposed to be the start of the season.
Especially when you're talking about the middle of that front. So let's talk about the breakout players.
Player.
I am going to go with Terrell Brown. Terrell Brown is probably their third running back. And he played in 3 games 2019. He was one of those guys who got redshirted. He got some run last year. He figures to be that third running back. As good as Kyle Porter and Mulbacar are, I want to see that depth develop, and I think that Terrell Brown could be that guy. So I like Terrell Brown as my breakout player. Let's talk. He's a guy who I think has a chance to see some meaningful reps and could be a guy that could be a breakout star. Let's talk about worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario, and again, look, like caveat, we don't know anything about what the schedule is going to look like. We don't know what anything, blah blah blah, all that. So it's hard to make. We don't know anything. It's really hard to make record projections when we don't know what the schedule is going to look like,
or how many games are playing.
And how many games are playing. Yeah. So that's the caveat.
Broader picture.
Taking a broader look at the team. They are reliant on a lot of youngsters to take that next step. If the plan, if truly Dana's playing 3D chess, then that bet's got to pay off. And if it doesn't pay off, you could be looking at a really, really rough year. And they have not missed a bowl in 2 consecutive years since 01-02. It's been a minute. But if the offensive line doesn't come together, if maybe Clayton Tune struggles as the guy, I don't think he will. I think he's going to be solid. But more importantly, if that defensive front kind of starts to falter and it trickles back into the secondary and the defense doesn't make those steps forward, I think the American Athletic is a better conference than it has been in the past, and I think that they can make them pay. I think that missing a bowl, whatever that means in 2020, is certainly a possibility. Well,
and I feel like off the field stuff too, I'm more concerned to see if we feel like this 3D chess game continues, that could, being the second year, not having much figured out, that could really start to affect the program as a whole.
I wonder
Dana's job and recruiting wise.
I do worry about
they can't get it over their head.
I do worry about a snowball effect.
Yes.
That if things start going poorly, then I wonder if people are going to start looking around the room what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What is the plan? There's that. Let's talk about best case scenario. The best case scenario is it all clicks. The best case scenario is Clayton Tune emerges as one of the best quarterbacks in the American Athletic Conference. The offensive line gels. They get the ball to guys like Marquez Stevenson out in space to be superstars. The running game gets going. The defensive line holds up and lets the secondary shine. And you're talking about a team that gets up near the top of the conference. I don't think this is a team that's going to win the conference or win their division, but I do think that this is a team that can play meaningful games late in the season. And I think that that's probably the best case scenario there for Houston. Lot to like here.
Yeah. Dana's got to walk off and say checkmate. That's how it's successful.
Things have to click in a certain way. And really, they've got to click in a certain way to keep from having a lot of questions about what the future of this program is.
Right.
That's kind of the biggest thing. So Houston is fascinating. I am absolutely enthralled by what's happening at Houston. I think they're my most interesting program in 2020.
Right. There's just so many variables.
There's a lot to get to. And so there you have it, the grand finale of summer camp. Make sure you roll up your sleeping bag and throw it in the station wagon. Get some moms driving you home. And now we go to Ashley Pickle for America's second favorite segment. Final thoughts.
Oh, man. All right. No more summer camp. I'm sad about that.
Are you sad about that?
I am.
Yeah.